When Lily walked across the ballroom in that red dress, something inside Benjamin Carter shattered. He was a man of absolute control, but his eyes devoured her as if she were the only woman in the world. The fabric glided over her curves like a forbidden whisper, and for the first time in years, the billionaire CEO felt fear, not of losing her, but of her never having been his to begin with. The morning came through the 18th floor windows of Carter & Co. like a silent invasion. Golden light sliced through the glass, reflecting off mahogany desks and the tired faces of those who'd been working since 6 a.m. The smell of strong coffee and fresh paper hung in the air, mixed with the muffled sound of keyboards being typed with urgency. Lily Morgan crossed the entrance hall with the posture of someone who knew exactly where she was stepping. Her heels struck the Italian marble with a firm rhythm, almost defiant. She didn't look sideways. She didn't need to. She knew some people stared. They always did. But she wasn't there to please anyone. She was there because she was good at what she did. At the top of the glass tower, Benjamin Carter was watching. Not intentionally at first. He'd been reviewing quarterly numbers. The phone on speaker, a tedious conversation with investors from London. But then he caught the movement down below, a silhouette crossing the atrium with that unbreakable confidence. Lily. He recognized her posture before he even saw her face. Something about her bothered him. Or maybe it was the opposite. Something about her calmed him in a way he couldn't name. Benjamin hung up the phone without saying goodbye. He pressed the intercom. "Have Coordinator Morgan come up." There was a pause on the other end. "Now, Mr. Carter. Now." Lily got the message in the elevator. She frowned. Meetings with Benjamin Carter weren't something that happened without warning. He was methodical, controlled, predictable. This kind of sudden summons wasn't part of the playbook. She felt her stomach twist, not with fear, but with something undefined. Curiosity, maybe, or irritation. When the elevator doors opened on the 25th floor, the silence was different, heavier. The carpet absorbed any sound. The walls were an elegant charcoal gray, decorated with minimalist art too expensive to have soul. Lily walked to his office, knocked once on the half-open door, and entered without waiting for an answer. Benjamin had his back turned, looking out the window, hands in the pockets of his tailored pants, broad shoulders tense beneath the impeccable navy suit. He didn't turn immediately. Lily felt the air shift, as if his presence occupied the entire space, as if the oxygen became denser when he was around. "Sit down," he said, still facing away. She didn't sit. "I'd rather stand." He turned then. His eyes, dark brown, almost black in the filtered light, landed on her with an intensity that made her skin tingle. It wasn't a casual look. It was examination. Assessment. Something more. "You're stubborn," he observed, his voice deep, controlled. "You're hard to impress," she shot back, crossing her arms. One corner of his mouth lifted almost a smile. Almost. "Touché." He walked to the desk, leaned against the edge, keeping his eyes fixed on her. The silence stretched, not awkward, but charged, as if they were both measuring strengths, testing invisible boundaries. "I want you to come to the board dinner as my guest," he said directly. No beating around the bush. Lily blinked. "Excuse me?" "The charity dinner. Friday. I want you there." She let out a short, disbelieving laugh. "I'm the operations coordinator, Mr. Carter, not a social event companion." "Exactly." He tilted his head, his eyes never leaving hers. "That's why I want you there. Because you don't play the game. You don't smile when you don't want to. You don't pretend interest. You don't sell yourself for applause." His words caught her off guard. There was something there, respect, perhaps, or challenge. She wasn't quite sure. "And what exactly do you expect me to do there?" She kept her tone professional, but something inside her began to race. "Impress me," he said simply. Lily felt her heartbeat quicken. The way he said it low, almost intimate, made something shift inside her. It wasn't an order. It was a challenge, and she never backed down from challenges. "And if I don't want to go?" she tested, raising her chin. Benjamin moved closer. 2 steps. 3. He stopped less than a meter away, close enough for her to smell him. Wood, spices, something clean and expensive. Close enough to see the jawline, the shadow of stubble, the dangerous gleam in his eyes. "You want to," he murmured, his voice husky. She should have stepped back, should have said something cutting, put distance between them, but she did none of that. She just stared at him, her chest rising and falling a little faster than it should. "Presumptuous," she whispered. "Realistic," he corrected. The air between them was electrified. Each second seemed to last an eternity and pass too quickly at the same time. Lily felt her mouth go dry, felt the heat rising up her neck, her cheeks, but she didn't look away. Finally, she took a step back and breathed deeply. "I'll think about it." "Don't think too much," he said, his voice still low. "Dangerous. Friday, 7 p.m. I'll send someone to pick you up." Lily turned to leave, but his voice stopped her at the door. "Lily." She looked over her shoulder. "Wear something that does justice to who you are, not what people expect of you." She didn't answer. She just left, closing the door harder than she'd intended. In the hallway, she leaned against the wall, closed her eyes, and let out the air she didn't know she'd been holding. Her heart was pounding. Her hands trembled slightly. She didn't understand what had just happened in there. Didn't understand why the way he said, "Impress me," sounded more like, "Prove to me you're as strong as I think you are." And she hated that part of her, wanted to prove exactly that. Inside, Benjamin remained motionless, staring at the closed door. His breathing still hadn't returned to normal. He ran a hand through his hair, let out a low, controlled sigh. What the hell was he doing? He didn't do this. Didn't invite employees to events. Didn't get close enough to smell their perfume, flowers and vanilla, in Lily's case. Didn't become obsessed with the way someone crossed their arms or raised their chin when challenged. But with her it was different. And that scared him more than any multi-million-dollar merger ever could. Friday arrived like a silent storm. Lily woke at 5:00 the morning, her stomach churning with a strange mix of anticipation and irritation with herself. She shouldn't be nervous. It was just a dinner, just a corporate event full of important people pretending to like each other. She'd attended dozens of them. But this time was different. This time, Benjamin Carter had challenged her to impress him, and she hated that part of her actually wanted to do it. The morning dragged. Lily tried to focus on work, but the numbers on the spreadsheet seemed blurred. Meetings dragged on. Every time the phone rang, her heart gave an involuntary jump, as if expecting it to be him. But Benjamin didn't call, didn't text, nothing. At 5 p.m., she left early, something rare. At home, she took a long shower, letting the hot water wash the tension from her shoulders. Steam filled the bathroom, carrying the scent of lavender from the soap. She closed her eyes, breathed deeply, tried to calm her racing pulse. It's just a dress. It's just one night. But when she opened the closet and saw the red dress hanging there, flowing silk that looked liquid under the light, she knew she was lying to herself. It wasn't just a dress. It was a statement. It was power. It was everything she didn't usually let others see. The dress slid over her body like a caress. The fabric was light, almost weightless, but it clung to every curve with surgical precision. The length ended a few inches above the knees, daring without being vulgar. The neckline plunged just enough to suggest, without revealing, the back was almost completely exposed, just a thin strip of fabric holding everything in place. She looked at herself in the mirror and almost didn't recognize herself. Her hair fell in loose waves over her bare shoulders, brown with golden highlights under the light. The makeup was subtle, just enough to enhance her green eyes, her lips with a touch of natural color. She slipped on silver high-heeled sandals, grabbed a small black clutch, and for a moment just stood there, breathing. Who are you when no one's watching? The question echoed in her head. She didn't know where it had come from. Maybe some old conversation, some forgotten therapy session. But now, looking at her reflection, she knew the answer. I'm someone who doesn't need to ask permission. The intercom buzzed at 7 sharp. The driver was waiting. The event hall at the Grand Celestial Hotel was everything Lily expected and despised. Crystal chandeliers hung from the high ceiling like suspended jewels. The tables were covered with immaculate white linens, arrangements of roses and peonies in the center. The air smelled of expensive perfume, French wine, and ambition disguised as charity. Men in tuxedos conversed in closed groups. Women in designer dresses laughed too loud, drank too slowly, measured each other with sharp glances. Lily stepped out of the car and felt the cool night air brush her exposed skin. She took a deep breath. Music came from inside something classical, piano and strings. She began climbing the marble steps, her heart beating a little faster with each one. And then he saw her. Benjamin was near the bar, talking with a group of executives. He held a glass of whiskey, his expression politely interested in that corporate way he'd mastered. But then something changed, a movement in his peripheral vision. He turned his head. Just a reflex. And everything stopped. Lily was crossing the ballroom. The red dress moved with her like liquid fire. The light from the chandeliers played with the fabric, creating shadows and glimmers with each step. Her hair swayed gently. Her posture was upright, confident, but there was something more. A natural grace that couldn't be taught or bought. Benjamin forgot to breathe. The glass in his hand tilted slightly. He didn't even notice. Someone beside him asked a question, something about investments, mergers, numbers, but the words didn't reach his ears. There was only her, only Lily, walking toward him as if the entire world had disappeared. His jaw locked. His eyes narrowed, not with anger, but with something more dangerous. Desire. Hunger. Something he hadn't felt in years. Maybe had never felt this way. Lily saw him. Her eyes met his across the crowded ballroom, and she felt the weight of that gaze like a hand pressing on her sternum. Felt the heat rising up her neck, her cheeks. Felt her breath catch in her throat. They didn't look away. She kept walking, because stopping would be admitting it affected her, because stopping would show weakness. But each step seemed longer, slower, as if the air had become denser between them. Benjamin finally reacted. He murmured something to the men around him, "Excuse me," that no one really heard, and began to move. He didn't run, didn't need to, but the determination in the way he cut through the ballroom made some heads turn. They met in the middle of the ballroom, under the central chandelier. Light fell on them both like a spotlight. The noise around them, conversations, laughter, music, became a distant hum. "You came," he said, his voice lower than usual. "You asked," she replied, keeping her tone light but her heart pounding. Benjamin looked at her. Really looked. His eyes traveled over her face, down her neck, her bare shoulders, the curve of her waist where the dress fit perfectly. It wasn't leering. It was reverent, as if he were memorizing every detail, as if he feared she might disappear if he blinked. "You're—" He stopped, searched for the right word. Devastating. Lily felt something twist inside her. It wasn't a common compliment. It wasn't, "You look beautiful," or "You look elegant." It was devastating, as if her presence had the power to destroy. And maybe it did. "Thank you," she murmured, her voice coming out softer than intended. He took a step closer, too close for corporate protocol. Close enough for her to feel the warmth of his body, the scent of his cologne. Something woody, masculine, addictive. "I wasn't prepared," he admitted, almost as if talking to himself. "For what? For you?" The words hung between them heavy, loaded with meaning. Lily opened her mouth to respond, but nothing came out. What could she say? That she wasn't prepared either? That she'd spent the entire week trying not to think about him and failing miserably? Someone bumped into them, a waiter carrying a tray of champagne. The moment broke. Benjamin stepped back half a step, cleared his throat, recomposed his mask of control. "Shall we?" He offered his arm. Lily hesitated for a fraction of a second. Then she slid her hand through his arm. The fabric of the tuxedo was soft under her fingers, but she felt the tense muscles underneath. He was as affected as she was. He just hid it better. They walked together through the ballroom, and Lily felt every gaze, women whispering behind invisible fans, men making that quick, silent calculation. Who is she? Where did she come from? What does she mean to him? But Lily didn't care. Because for the first time in a long time, she wasn't trying to fit in, wasn't trying to be what they expected. She was just being. And Benjamin beside her couldn't stop looking. The night unfolded in layers. Speeches about charity that sounded more like self-promotion. Toasts to achievements no one really celebrated. Rehearsed smiles exchanged between tables. Lily observed it all with that analytical gaze that made her so good at her job, the ability to see what was behind the social masks. But tonight she was on the other side. She was the one being observed. Benjamin guided her to the main table. Of course, it would be the main table next to the mayor, 2 senators, the director of an internationally renowned art foundation. All important, all powerful, and all curious about the woman who had arrived alongside Benjamin Carter. "So, Miss..." The woman to Lily's right leaned in, her floral perfume too strong, her blue eyes gleaming with malicious curiosity. "Morgan." "Lily Morgan," she replied, keeping her tone polite but firm. "And you work with Benjamin?" The question came loaded with insinuations. "I work for Carter & Co." Lily corrected, picking up her wineglass. "I coordinate strategic operations." The woman blinked, surprised. She'd clearly expected another answer, maybe companion, maybe romantic interest, but not a competent professional who was there on her own merit. Benjamin watched the exchange with a half-smile. He leaned slightly toward Lily, his voice low enough for only her to hear. "You just destroyed her theories." "Good," Lily murmured back, her eyes fixed on her glass. "I didn't come here to feed gossip." "No? Then why did you come?" She turned her face to him. They were so close she could see the small lines around his eyes, the way the chandelier light created golden reflections in the dark brown of his irises. "Because you challenged me, and you never refuse a challenge. Never." Something passed between them, quick, electric, dangerous. Benjamin looked away first, grabbed his own glass, drank more than he'd intended. The music changed. A waltz began to play, soft, classical, predictable. Couples began to stand, heading toward the dance floor in the center of the ballroom. Lily watched, expecting Benjamin to make some ironic comment about outdated traditions or empty social rituals. But then a male voice interrupted her thoughts. "Excuse me, may I steal the lady for a dance?" Lily looked up. A tall man, probably in his 40s, impeccable tuxedo, charming but not invasive smile. She recognized the face. Thomas Garrett, partner at another investment firm. They'd talked briefly at a conference months ago. "Thomas," she said, surprised but not unpleasantly so. "You remember?" He smiled, extending his hand. Lily looked at Benjamin. He was motionless, his expression carefully neutral. But she saw it, the almost imperceptible tightening of his jaw, the way his fingers closed around his glass, the dangerous gleam in his eyes. Jealousy. She shouldn't like it, shouldn't feel that spark of satisfaction. But she did. "Of course," she said, placing her hand in Thomas's. He guided her to the dance floor. His hand rested politely on her waist, respectful, no pressure. They began to move with the music. Thomas was a good dancer, confident steps, correct rhythm. He talked while they danced, light comments about the event, polite questions about how she was doing. But Lily barely heard him, because she felt Benjamin's eyes locked on her, felt the weight of that gaze like a physical presence. She didn't need to look to know he was watching every movement, every polite smile she gave Thomas, every time their bodies came close with the turn of the dance. "You're distracted," Thomas observed, amused. "Sorry," Lily murmured, trying to concentrate. "No need to apologize." "I understand." He tilted his head slightly in Benjamin's direction. "He hasn't taken his eyes off you since we left the table." Lily felt the heat rising up her neck. "He's my boss." Thomas laughed softly. "Right, if you say so." The music began to change, the waltz transforming into something slower, more intimate. Lily felt a presence behind her before she even heard the voice. "May I cut in?" "Benjamin." His voice lower than normal. There was an edge there, something tense, controlled with effort. Thomas looked between the two, his smile understanding. "Of course. It was a pleasure, Lily." He stepped away, and before Lily could breathe, Benjamin pulled her close. Didn't ask, didn't wait, simply enveloped her. His hand landed on her exposed waist, skin against skin, warm, firm. The other held her hand with an intensity that made her heart race. He pulled her so close, their bodies almost touched, separated only by millimeters charged with electricity. "You're angry," Lily whispered, looking up into his eyes. "I am," he admitted without hesitation. "Why?" "Because another man was touching you." The brutal honesty of the words disarmed her. It wasn't said with shame or apology. It was stated as fact, as undeniable truth. He was just dancing, Benjamin. "I know." His jaw contracted. "Didn't say it was rational." They began to move with the music, but it wasn't like with Thomas. It wasn't polite or respectful. It was intense, primal, his hand on her waist pressed with possessiveness. His fingers traced small circles on the bare skin of her back, sending shivers up her spine. Lily fought to keep her breathing steady. "You don't have the right to be jealous." "I know," he repeated, his mouth so close to her ear she felt the warmth of his breath. "But I am anyway." She closed her eyes for a second, trying to anchor herself, but everything was spinning, the music, the lights, his scent enveloping her like smoke. "Do you know what you're doing to me in that dress?" Benjamin murmured, his voice so low it was almost a growl. Lily opened her eyes, met his. "It's not just the dress, Benjamin." "I know." His eyes darkened. "It's you. It's always been you." The world around them disappeared. There was no more ballroom, no more music, no one else. Just the two of them, trapped in that moment, in that unbearable proximity. Benjamin tilted his head, his face so close their noses almost touched. Lily felt his breath mixing with hers, felt his heart beating against her chest. Or was it hers? She didn't know anymore. "Tell me to stop," he whispered. "No," she answered without thinking. His hand moved up, fingers brushing the side of her neck, thumb tracing her jawline. It was such a light touch it almost didn't exist. But it burned. God, how it burned. "Lily." His voice was strangled, desperate. "Benjamin." They were so lost in each other they didn't notice the music had stopped, that other couples were beginning to leave the floor, that curious gazes were turning toward them. It was the discreet flash of a camera that broke the trance. Benjamin blinked as if waking from a dream. He stepped back slightly, released her waist but not completely, his fingers still brushed her skin, reluctant to lose contact. "We need to get out of here," he said, his voice rough. "Why?" "Because if we stay one more minute, I'm going to do something we'll both regret." Lily should have felt fear, should have pulled back, but all she felt was desire, pure, undeniable, consuming. "Who says I'd regret it?" His eyes widened. For a second he looked lost, vulnerable, human, and then, without a word, he laced his fingers through hers and led her out of the ballroom. The night air greeted them like a necessary shock, cold, clean, cutting against their heated skin. Lily breathed deeply, filling her lungs with air that seemed to have been missing inside the suffocating ballroom. The city lights blinked in the distance, Manhattan in all its nighttime glory. Millions of lives happening simultaneously, oblivious to the turmoil happening inside her. Benjamin didn't let go of her hand. His fingers remained intertwined with hers as he guided her down the marble steps, past the imposing columns of the hotel, toward the side parking lot where his driver waited. The sound of her heels echoed on the concrete, mixed with both their heavy breathing. They didn't speak, didn't need to. The silence between them was loaded with everything that couldn't be said aloud. Not yet. It was a dense, pulsing silence, full of dangerous promises and unconfessed desires. The driver opened the car door as soon as he saw them approaching. A black Mercedes, dark windows, leather interior that smelled of restrained luxury. Benjamin gestured for Lily to enter first. She slid inside, the red dress adjusting to the movement, revealing a bit more of her thigh. He followed, sitting so close their bodies almost touched. The door closed with a muffled sound. The outside world disappeared. "Where to, sir?" The driver's voice came through the intercom. Benjamin looked at Lily. It wasn't a verbal question, but she understood. "Your place? Mine? Where does this night end?" "Take us back to Miss Morgan's address," Benjamin said, his voice controlled. But Lily noticed the effort it cost him to maintain that composure. The car began to move, gliding smoothly through the lit streets. City lights passed by the windows in neon streaks, red, blue, gold. Lily looked outside, trying to calm her heart that was still pounding wildly in her chest. "Do you regret it?" Benjamin's voice cut through the silence. She turned her head, met his eyes. Even in the dim light of the car, she could see the intensity there, the vulnerability he rarely showed. "Regret what?" "Coming. Dancing with me. Letting—" He hesitated, searching for the right words. "Letting this happen." Lily bit her lower lip, thinking, should she regret it? Should she be worried about the consequences, about the looks at the office on Monday, about the line they'd crossed that couldn't be erased? "No," she said finally, "I don't regret it." Something changed in his face. The relief was palpable. He exhaled a breath that seemed to have been trapped for hours. "Neither do I," he admitted. The car turned a corner. Light from a street lamp came through the window, illuminating his profile, the strong line of his jaw, the straight nose, the lips she'd been so close to kissing. Lily felt a wave of courage. Or was it madness? To take hold of her. "Why did you invite me, Benjamin? Truly." He was silent for a long moment. Then he turned completely toward her, his knee brushing her thigh on the car's narrow seat. "Because I can't stop thinking about you," he said without hesitation. "I wake up thinking about you. I fall asleep thinking about you. You're in every meeting, in every report, in every damn second of my day." The words fell between them like stones thrown into still water, causing ripples, disturbing the carefully maintained surface. "Benjamin, let me finish." He ran a hand through his hair, messing up the perfectly combed strands. "I tried. God knows I tried to keep my distance, keep things professional. But you show up with that defiant look, with that sharp intelligence, with that strength that doesn't need to shout to be heard. And I'm lost. Completely lost." Lily's heart beat so hard she was sure he could hear it. She opened her mouth to respond, but no words came. What could she say? That she felt the same? That she also woke up in the middle of the night thinking about him? That the image of him leaning over the conference table, focused, serious, competent, haunted her in ways she didn't want to admit? The car stopped in front of her, building a renovated brownstone in Brooklyn. Nothing extravagant, but cozy. The entrance lights created a soft yellow halo on the sidewalk. "We're here, sir," the driver's voice echoed. But neither of them moved. Benjamin looked out the window, then back at Lily. "I didn't want the night to end." "Neither did I," she whispered. He raised his hand slowly, giving her time to pull back if she wanted. But she didn't. She just watched as his fingers reached her face, touching the side of her cheek with a softness that completely contrasted with the intensity of his gaze. His fingers slid to a loose strand of hair that had fallen over her face during the dance. He picked it up delicately, as if it were made of fragile silk, and tucked it behind her ear. But his fingers didn't move away. They remained there, tracing the line of her ear, descending along her jaw, stopping at her chin. Lily closed her eyes. His touch was fire, pure electricity. Everything she didn't know she needed. "Lily." His voice was broken. She opened her eyes. He was so close, so dangerously close. His breath warmed her lips. His eyes, those dark eyes that haunted her, fixed on hers with an intensity that stripped her of all defenses. "Benjamin," she responded, his name coming out like a prayer. He tilted his head. Millimeters. Centimeters. His nose brushed hers. Their mouths so close you could feel the ghost of the kiss before it happened. The world stopped. Time froze. Nothing existed beyond that tiny space between them. And then Lily pulled back, not much, just enough to break the moment, just enough to breathe. Benjamin froze. His eyes widened, confusion, pain, understanding all at once. "Lily." She smiled. A small smile. Contained, but genuine. "If this is going to happen, Benjamin, it won't be because we're trapped in a car after a night charged with tension." He blinked. Then, slowly, a smile formed on his lips, not the polite corporate smile, not the ironic half-smile. It was real, vulnerable, beautiful. "You're right," he admitted. "I know." She opened the car door, stepped out into the cool night air. But before closing the door, she leaned back in, looking at him one last time. "Good night, Benjamin." "Good night, Lily." She closed the door, climbed the building steps, feeling his eyes on her back with every step. When she reached the door, she turned. The car was still there. He was still watching. She waved a small gesture, almost shy. He waved back. And then the car pulled away, the taillights disappearing into the night. Lily entered the apartment, closed the door, leaned against it, and finally let the air out of her lungs. Her legs trembled. Her heart still raced. Her fingertips tingled where he'd touched. She brought her hand to her face, touching the place where his fingers had been. She could still feel the warmth, still feel the promise. What did I just do? But deep down, she knew the answer. She'd taken the first step in something that had no turning back. Something that would change everything. And for the first time in a long time, she wasn't afraid. She was curious. She was alive. She was ready. In the car, Benjamin leaned his head back on the seat, closed his eyes, and let out a low, incredulous laugh. She stopped me, and somehow that made her even more irresistible. He opened his eyes, looked out the window at the city passing quickly by. The night was far from over. Sleep, he knew, wouldn't come easily. Because Lily Morgan had just turned his world upside down, and he didn't want to go back to normal anymore. Monday arrived with the typical brutality of any beginning of the week. Lily woke to the sound of her alarm at 6. 0 inches the morning, still feeling the weight of the weekend on her shoulders. Not physical tiredness, but that emotional exhaustion that comes from thinking too much, feeling too much, questioning every decision made on Friday night. She spent Saturday and Sunday trying to distract herself, cleaned the apartment until every surface gleamed, reorganized her closet, watched 3 movies she couldn't remember afterward. But nothing worked. Because every time she closed her eyes, she saw the way Benjamin had looked at her in the ballroom, felt the touch of his fingers on her face, heard his husky voice saying, "I can't stop thinking about you." And the scariest part, she felt exactly the same way. The office was packed when she arrived. The normal Monday buzz, coffee being made, printers humming, conversations about the weekend that no one really cared to hear. Lily went straight to her desk, turned on her computer, dove into emails as if they were a lifeline. Work, focus, professionalism. This she could control. But then, at 10:15 inches the morning, her cell phone rang. Unknown number. Hello? Lily Morgan. A female voice, young, slightly frantic. Yes. Who's calling? This is Emma's school. You're listed as an emergency contact. Her mother, your sister, was in a car accident. Nothing serious, but she's at the hospital getting tests done. We need someone to come pick Emma up. The world stopped for a second. Sarah, her younger sister. Accident. I'm on my way. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Lily hung up, grabbed her purse. Already standing, heart racing, she quickly passed by the department assistant's desk. Family emergency. I need to leave. Reschedule my meetings. She didn't wait for an answer. She was almost at the door when she bumped into someone, literally. Papers flew. She stumbled. Firm hands caught her by the shoulders. Lily. Benjamin. She looked up, heart still racing from the news, and found his eyes full of immediate concern. What happened? My sister. Car accident. I need to pick up my niece from school. The words came out, rushed, urgent. He didn't hesitate. I'm coming with you. Benjamin, you don't need to. It's not an offer. It's a fact. His voice didn't allow for discussion. He turned to the nearby assistant. Cancel my morning. Anything urgent, pass it to Marcus. Before Lily could protest again, he was already guiding her to the elevator, his hand firm on her back, a touch of support, of presence, of I'm here. 25 minutes later, they were in front of the elementary school, a red brick building surrounded by trees, still holding on to the last leaves of autumn. The smell of chalk and whiteboard marker floated in the air, mixed with the distant sound of children playing in the courtyard. Emma was in the principal's office, sitting in a chair too big for her, hugging her pink backpack like a shield. When she saw Lily, her eyes filled with tears. Aunt Lily. Lily knelt in front of her, hugged the 6-year-old tightly. It's okay, sweetheart. Your mom is fine. It was just a scare. Is she coming home? Yes. Today. I promise. Emma sniffled, wiped her nose with her sleeve. That's when she noticed Benjamin standing in the doorway, watching the scene with an expression Lily couldn't decipher. Who's he? Emma whispered, eyes wide. Lily looked over her shoulder. Benjamin took a step forward, then crouched down to the girl's level, an action so natural, so devoid of discomfort, that Lily felt something tighten in her chest. Hi, Emma. I'm Benjamin, your aunt's friend. He extended his hand, serious, respectful. Emma looked at his hand, then at him, then at Lily. Then, with that adorable childish seriousness, she shook his hand. You're tall, she observed. Benjamin laughed, a low, genuine laugh that Lily rarely heard at the office. That's true. You're very observant. I can draw. Really? That's cool. What do you like to draw? Princesses and dragons. And sometimes princesses riding dragons. Wow. Benjamin made an impressed expression that didn't seem forced. That's way more interesting than regular princesses. Emma smiled, the first smile since they had arrived. Lily felt the knot in her throat loosen a little. They went straight to the hospital. Sarah was fine, as promised, just a few scratches, an immobilized arm, but nothing serious. The doctor said she could go home in the afternoon. Lily stayed by her sister's side, held her hand, assured her everything was under control. Benjamin stayed with Emma in the waiting room. When Lily came back an hour later, she found a scene that made her stop in the doorway. Benjamin was sitting on the floor, his Armani suit certainly getting scratched on the cheap linoleum, with Emma beside him. In front of them, spread across the floor, were dozens of drawings made with the colored pencils from the girl's backpack. "This one is the fiercest dragon," Emma explained seriously, pointing to a green scribble with wings. "He protects the princess from all the bad guys." "Very wise," Benjamin agreed, picking up another paper. "And this one? That's the castle where they live. It has a really tall tower and a bridge that only opens when you say the magic word." "What's the magic word?" Emma leaned in as if it were a secret. "Chocolate." Benjamin burst into genuine laughter. "Perfect. If I had a castle, that would be my magic word too." Lily felt something move inside her chest, something deep, frightening, immense. Because this wasn't the version of Benjamin she knew from the office. It wasn't the ruthless CEO, the fierce negotiator, the man of quick decisions and hard stares. This was Benjamin, the man behind the mask. Caring, patient, vulnerable, and she was lost. Completely lost. He looked up and saw her in the doorway. Their eyes met. For a moment, neither moved. There was something there, a silent understanding, a recognition that something had changed, that this afternoon had revealed a layer that could no longer be hidden. "Aunt Lily," Emma ran to her. Benjamin said, "Real dragons exist in Indonesia. They're called Komodo dragons." "Really?" Lily smiled, stroking her niece's hair, but her eyes still fixed on Benjamin. He stood up, brushed off his suit with his hands, but didn't seem to care about the wrinkled crease or the purple crayon stain on the knee of his pants. "How's your sister?" "Good. She'll be discharged in a few hours." "Great." He hesitated, then added lower, "Do you need anything? I can call someone, handle something at work, anything." The offer was simple, but it carried so much weight, so much care. "Thank you, Benjamin. But I think everything's under control now." He nodded, then turned to Emma. "It was a pleasure meeting you, artist. Keep drawing those princesses riding dragons. The world needs more stories like that." Emma blushed, hugged the drawings to her chest. "Can you come back?" Benjamin looked at Lily. There was a question in his eyes. "May I?" "Of course he can," Lily said before even thinking. The smile that lit up his face was like the sun breaking through clouds. Later, after Benjamin returned to the office, after Sarah was discharged, after Emma finally fell asleep on Lily's couch wrapped in a soft blanket, Lily stood by the window looking at the city lights. Her phone buzzed. A message. "Benjamin, thank you for letting me stay today." Lily looked at the screen, her fingers hovering over the keys. "Lily, thank you for coming. Benjamin, always." One word. 6 letters. But its weight was immense. Lily rested her forehead against the cold window glass, closed her eyes, and finally admitted to herself what she'd been denying for weeks. She was falling in love with him, and it wasn't just desire anymore. It wasn't just romantic tension or physical attraction. It was depth. It was connection. It was the most frightening and wonderful thing she'd ever felt, and there was no going back. A week passed, 7 days that felt simultaneously eternal and too fast. The office returned to its normal rhythm, meetings, reports, tight deadlines, but nothing was really normal. Not for Lily. Not for Benjamin. They exchanged glances across conference rooms, professional messages that carried heavy subtexts, casual hallway encounters that lasted seconds but felt like hours. There was a tension in the air, thick, palpable, like the moment before a storm when the sky darkens and the wind stops, waiting. Everyone around felt something. Secretaries whispered. Colleagues exchanged curious looks. But no one spoke openly, because Benjamin Carter and Lily Morgan were too professional to let anything leak. Except inside, they were both falling apart. Lily wasn't sleeping right. She'd wake in the middle of the night, body hot, mind full of images. Him kneeling beside Emma, him on the dance floor with his hands on her waist, him almost kissing her in the car. She took cold showers at 3 a.m., walked around the apartment like a ghost, tried to convince herself it was just attraction, just chemistry, just something that would pass. But deep down she knew she was lying to herself. Benjamin wasn't any better. He canceled 2 important dinners because he couldn't concentrate. Marcus, his partner, made a sarcastic comment about distractions that he ignored. He locked himself in his office and stared out the window, lost in thoughts that always came back to her, to those defiant green eyes, to the way she bit her lip when she was focused, to the low, genuine laugh she let out when Emma said the magic word was chocolate. He was lost. Completely, irrevocably lost. And on Thursday night at 10:20, he couldn't take it anymore. Lily was at home, dressed in a baggy gray sweatshirt and pajama pants, hair pulled up in a messy bun. She'd just finished a report that could have waited until Monday, but she needed something to occupy her mind. A mug of tea was cooling on the coffee table. The TV was on some documentary about oceans that she wasn't really watching. The doorbell rang. She frowned. 10:20. At night. Who? She got up, went to the door, looked through the peephole, and her heart stopped. Benjamin, standing in the hallway, hands in his pockets, hair slightly messy as if he'd run his fingers through it several times. He wasn't wearing a suit, just dark jeans and a gray shirt with rolled-up sleeves. He looked tired. He looked vulnerable. He looked human in a way that completely disarmed her. Lily opened the door slowly. Benjamin. He looked up, and the look he gave her, God, that look was like a punch to the gut. I can't, he said, his voice broken. I can't stop thinking about you, Lily. I tried. I spent the whole week trying, but I can't. Lily froze, her hand still on the doorknob. Her heart was beating so loud she was sure he could hear it. Benjamin. I know I shouldn't be here, he continued, taking a step forward. I know this complicates everything, but I'm going crazy. I wake up thinking about you. I fall asleep dreaming about you and that almost kiss in the car. I think about it every single day. About what would have happened if you hadn't stopped. About what could still happen. Lily felt her legs weaken. She should say something. Should send him away. Should remember they were boss and employee. That this could ruin careers. That crossing this line was dangerous. But all that came out was, "Come in." He didn't hesitate. He entered, and she closed the door behind him. The apartment felt smaller with him there, warmer, more charged. They stood still, less than a meter apart. The air between them crackled. I'm scared, Lily admitted, her voice low but steady. Scared of what this means, of what could happen. Me too, Benjamin took another step, but I'm more scared of never knowing, of letting this pass, and spending the rest of my life wondering what if. Lily closed her eyes, tried to breathe, but everything was spinning. When she opened them again, he was closer, so close she could see the small lines around his eyes, the tiredness, the intensity, the raw desire. Tell me to leave, he whispered. If you don't want this, tell me now and I'll go, and I'll never bring this up again. Lily looked at him, really looked, saw the man who commanded a company with a firm hand, but who sat on a hospital floor to draw with a 6-year-old. Saw the man who tried to keep his distance but failed miserably. Saw the man who was standing there at her door at 10 at night, vulnerable, honest, and real. And she made the most frightening decision of her life. Stay, she whispered. Something changed in his face, relief, desire, gratitude. He raised his hand, touched her face with a delicacy that contrasted with the intensity of the moment. His thumb traced the line of her cheek, descended to her lips. Lily closed her eyes, leaned slightly against the touch. Lily. His voice was pure need. She opened her eyes, met his. Kiss me, Benjamin. He didn't need to be told twice. He leaned in, eliminating the distance that had been torturing them both for weeks. And when his lips touched hers, it was like the world exploded in colors. The kiss started soft, almost shy, exploring, asking, but then Lily opened her mouth against his, and everything changed. The restraint broke like a ruptured dam. Benjamin pulled her close hands on her waist, then sliding up her back, tangling in her hair. Lily held his face, deepened the kiss, let out all the frustration, all the desire, all the accumulated tension. They stumbled backward. Lily's back hit the hallway wall softly. Benjamin pressed his body against hers, warmth, muscles, solidity. She felt everything, his heart beating wildly against her chest, the heavy breathing, how much he wanted her. His lips left her mouth, descended along her jaw, her neck. Lily tilted her head back, fingers burying in his hair, a low moan escaping without permission. "God, Lily," he murmured against her skin. "You have no idea what you do to me." "Show me," she responded, her voice unrecognizable. He lifted his head, looked into her eyes. There was a question there. "Are you sure?" Lily answered by pulling him back for another kiss, deep, consuming, definitive. Benjamin picked her up, a fluid movement, effortless. Lily wrapped her legs around his waist, arms around his neck. He carried her down the narrow hallway, guided more by instinct than knowledge of the apartment. "Which door?" he murmured against her lips. "The one on the left." He pushed the door open with his shoulder. The bedroom was in shadow, only streetlight coming through the window, creating soft shadows on the walls. Benjamin placed her carefully on the bed, then stood there looking at her. Lily lay there, hair spread on the pillow, lips swollen from kisses, eyes dark with desire. She was in a sweatshirt and pajamas, nothing glamorous, nothing planned, but to him she'd never been more beautiful. "You're perfect," he said, his voice full of reverence. Lily smiled that small, contained smile he loved. "Come here." He leaned down, captured her lips again. But this time, there was less urgency, more depth. They had time now. They had privacy. They had the whole night. His hands slid under the sweatshirt, touching the warm skin of her stomach. Lily arched against the touch. Her hands found the buttons of his shirt, undoing them one by one. The fabric fell. She ran her hands over his chest, feeling the muscles contract under her fingers. He was all solidity and warmth, the physical confirmation of something she'd only imagined until now. "Tell me you want this too, Lily," he whispered, lips next to her ear. "I want this," she answered without hesitation. "God, I want this." The sweatshirt was removed carefully, his shirt abandoned on the floor, skin against skin, heat, labored breaths, kisses that deepened, softened, deepened again. Benjamin kissed every inch of her skin, reverent, slow, as if memorizing. Lily let her hands explore, tracing the line of his shoulders, his back, feeling every tense muscle under her touch. "You're everything I didn't know I needed," he whispered against her skin, his voice thick with emotion. "Then make me forget the world," she asked, fingers tangled in his hair. And he did. Hours later, or maybe minutes, time had lost meaning. Lily was nestled against Benjamin's chest, tracing lazy circles with her fingers on his still warm skin. His breathing had finally calmed, his heartbeat steady under her ear. He kissed the top of her head, fingers playing with loose strands of her hair. "I don't regret this," he murmured. "Neither do I," she replied, pressing closer to him. They remained silent, just existing in that moment. But they both knew something had changed irrevocably. They'd crossed a line they could no longer erase, and neither of them wanted to go back. The following 2 weeks were like living in two parallel worlds. At the office, Lily and Benjamin maintained their professional mask meetings, reports, strategic decisions. No one knew, or at least no one spoke openly about it. But when the doors closed, when night fell, and they met at her apartment or his penthouse in Manhattan, the world transformed. There they were, just Benjamin and Lily. No titles, no hierarchies, just two human beings trying to navigate something bigger than themselves. Lily discovered that Benjamin cooked not elaborate dishes, but a decent carbonara and surprisingly good pancakes. He discovered that she sang in the shower, always off-key, but never stopping. They watched movies curled up on the couch, argued about alternate endings, shared ice cream straight from the container at 2:00 the morning. It was intimate. It was real. It was frighteningly perfect. And that's exactly why Lily should have known something would go wrong. It was a Friday. Lily was in the conference room reviewing quarterly projections when her assistant came in, face pale. "There's a woman in reception asking to speak with you." Lily frowned. "About what?" She said, "It's personal." "About Mr. Carter." Lily's stomach turned. She stood up, smoothed her skirt, tried to keep her expression neutral. Send her in. The woman who entered was everything. Lily wasn't tall, platinum blonde, Chanel dress, Louboutin heels, perfume that probably cost more than Lily's monthly rent. She moved with that confidence that comes from privilege. Old money. Right connections. Doors always open. You must be Lily Morgan. The voice was sweet, but there was a hidden blade there. I am. And you are? Isabelle Laurent. She extended her hand, smile impeccable. Benjamin's ex-fiancé. Lily's world tilted slightly. Ex-fiancé. Benjamin had never mentioned a fiancé. Girlfriends. Vaguely. But fiancé? Lily shook her hand, keeping her face carefully neutral. What can I do for you, Miss Laurent? Isabelle sat down without being invited, crossed her legs with studied elegance. I figured we should talk woman to woman. About Benjamin, of course. Isabelle opened her expensive purse, took out her phone. See, I know you two are involved. And I thought you should know some things before you get in too deep. Lily's heart pounded hard, but she kept her voice steady. I don't know what you're talking about. Please. Isabelle laughed, a crystalline fake sound. All of Manhattan's elite knows Benjamin Carter is different now, more distracted, more human. And when a man like him changes, it's always because of a woman. She slid the phone across the table. Lily looked down. On the screen, photos Benjamin and Isabelle on a yacht, embracing at a party, him kissing her forehead. The dates were recent, some from just 2 months ago. He didn't mention it, did he? Isabelle tilted her head, eyes gleaming with false sympathy. That we were still seeing each other. That he told me he loved me just 8 weeks ago. Lily felt the floor disappear beneath her feet. It couldn't be true. Benjamin wouldn't lie. Not about something like this. But there were the photos. The messages. Intimate conversations about trying again and giving it another chance. Why are you showing me this? Because I know him, Lily. I know Benjamin better than anyone. And I know he has a pattern. He gets bored, looks for new thrills, and then he comes back. Always comes back. Isabelle stood up, smoothed her dress. I just thought it was fair to warn you before you get hurt. She left with the same confidence she'd entered with, leaving the phone on the table with the photos still on the screen. Lily sat there motionless, staring at those images. Her brain tried to process, tried to find logical explanations, but all she could think was, did he lie to me? She didn't go back to the office that day. She sent a message saying she was sick. Technically not a lie. Her stomach churned. Her head throbbed. Her hands trembled. At home, she sat on the couch, where they'd watched movies together, looked at the kitchen where he'd made pancakes last Sunday, at the bedroom door where... No. She couldn't think about that now. She picked up her phone. 17 unread messages from Benjamin. Benjamin, where are you? Benjamin, Lily, is everything okay? Benjamin, please call me. Benjamin, I'm worried. Each message was a stab. Because if he was worried, if he cared, how could he have lied? How could he be with her while still having ties to Isabelle? The phone rang. Benjamin. She looked at the screen, heart torn in conflict. Answer or not? Finally, she pressed the green button. Hi, Lily. Thank God. Where are you? What happened? His voice was loaded with genuine concern. I had a visitor today. She kept her voice neutral, but her hands trembled. Isabelle Laurent. Silence on the other end. Long, heavy, condemning silence. Lily. Is it true? Were you two still together 2 months ago? No. Not the way she makes it seem. She showed me photos, Benjamin. Messages. You saying you loved her. That was before you. Before us. His voice was desperate now. Yes, we tried to get back together. Yes, there were conversations. But I ended everything when I realized it wasn't what I wanted. That you were what I wanted. Why didn't you tell me? Because I didn't think it mattered. Because it was the past. The past? Lily let out a bitter laugh. 2 months isn't the past, Benjamin. It's recent history. And you didn't think I should know you were getting out of a relationship when we started? I wasn't getting out. It was over for you. Maybe. But clearly not for her. Silence again. Lily closed her eyes, felt the tears burning. I don't trust this, Benjamin. I don't trust us. How do I know that in 2 months you won't do the same thing to me? Trade me for another new thrill? Because this is different, he almost shouted. You're different. What I feel for you is—" Lily cut him off, her voice firm despite the tears streaming down. "I can't do this. I can't keep wondering if I'm enough. If you'll go back to her. If all this was just a distraction. Lily, don't do this. Please. I need time, Benjamin. I need to think." "Lily." She hung up and collapsed. Benjamin stood in the empty office, phone still in his hand, chest too tight to breathe properly. He ran his hands through his hair, let out a low curse. Isabel. Of course it was Isabel. He should have told Lily from the beginning. Should have explained that yes, he'd tried to get back with Isabel because of family pressure, for convenience, from fear of loneliness, but that it had been a mistake, that he'd never had with Isabel what he had with Lily. But now it was too late. Doubt had been planted, and Benjamin knew better than anyone how doubt could destroy even the strongest foundation. He had to fix this. He had to prove to Lily that she wasn't a distraction, that she was everything. But how do you convince someone to trust when the evidence says otherwise? 5 days. 5 days since Lily hung up on Benjamin. 5 days without messages, without calls, without seeing him at the office because she'd requested medical leave, something she'd never done in her life. Sarah, her sister, showed up on the 3rd day with a shopping bag and a worried look. "You can't lock yourself in here forever." "I can try," Lily mumbled from the couch, wrapped in a blanket, eyes swollen. "He called me, you know, Benjamin." Lily's head shot up. "What?" "Called yesterday. Asked how you were, if you were eating, if you needed anything." Sarah sat down beside her. "Lily, the man is destroyed. Whatever happened, he's suffering as much as you are. He lied, Sarah. He omitted. It's different." "Is it?" Sarah sighed, took her sister's hand. "Look, I'm not going to defend lies. But sometimes people don't tell certain things because they don't want the past to contaminate the present. Maybe he was just trying to protect what you had. Or maybe he was hiding something. Maybe." Sarah squeezed her hand. "But you won't find out here, drowning in self-pity. You need to talk to him. Really talk. Hear his side and then decide." On the 4th day, Lily finally gathered the courage to investigate. She didn't want to admit it, but doubt was eating her alive. What if Benjamin was telling the truth? What if Isabel had manipulated the evidence? She started discreetly, called a friend who worked in public relations and had access to social information, asked about Isabel Lauron and Benjamin Carter, trying to sound casual. "Oh yes, they broke up in the summer," her friend said. "It was kind of controversial because the families wanted them to get married, old money joining new money, you know how it is. But Benjamin broke it off for good in July. There was even a small article in the society column." "July?" Lily frowned. "Are you sure?" "Positive. I remember because it was the same week as my birthday. July. 2 months before she and Benjamin started." Lily hung up, heart racing. She grabbed the phone Isabel had left. She still hadn't returned it. Looked at the photos again, this time paying attention to details, the date in the corner, the clothes, the setting, and then she saw it. One of the photos had a strange border as if it had been cropped. Another showed a date that had been edited, slightly different pixels. The messages also seemed decontextualized phrases that could mean different things depending on context. Isabel had manipulated everything. The floor fell out from under Lily's feet again, but this time not from betrayal, from guilt. What have I done? She'd accused Benjamin, had doubted him, had hung up on him without giving him a chance for a complete explanation. And worst of all, she'd let Isabel's poison contaminate something pure. It was Sunday afternoon when Lily finally left the apartment. It was drizzling, that fine autumn rain that doesn't completely soak you but leaves everything glistening. The smell of wet earth and fallen leaves filled the air. She knew where he'd be. Prospect Park. Benjamin had mentioned once, almost casually, that he went there when he needed to think that the green space in the middle of urban chaos helped him breathe. Lily walked the gravel paths, hands in her coat pockets, heart pounding, and then she saw him sitting on a bench looking at the lake. He wore jeans and a dark leather jacket, hair messed up by the light breeze. He looked tired. He looked lost. He looked exactly how she felt. She approached slowly. He didn't notice immediately, was too lost in thought. But then, as if sensing her presence, he turned his head. Their eyes met. Benjamin stood slowly, as if he couldn't believe she was really there. Lily. Hi. Her voice came out weak, hoarse. They stood still a few meters apart, the fine rain falling between them like a translucent curtain. I found out, Lily began, her voice trembling. About the photos, the messages. Isabel manipulated everything. Benjamin closed his eyes, let out a long sigh. I tried to tell you, I know, and I didn't listen. Tears began to fall, mixing with the rain. I let doubt consume me, let it destroy something that was real. And I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Benjamin. He took a step forward, and then another. Stopped right in front of her, so close, she could see the pain in his eyes, the exhaustion. But also something more. Hope. Tell me there's still a chance, Lily. His voice was broken, vulnerable. Tell me I haven't lost you completely. Lily looked at him. Really looked. Saw the man who'd shown up at her door at 10 at night because he couldn't stay away. The man who sat on a hospital floor to draw with Emma. The man who held her as if she were too precious to break. There is, she whispered. If it's real, if you promise me it's real. It's the most real thing I've ever had in my life. He raised his hands, held her face with a delicacy that made her crumble. You're not a distraction, Lily. You're everything. You're the only thing that makes sense in a world that sometimes seems too chaotic. A tear rolled down her cheek. He wiped it away with his thumb, the touch so gentle it was almost a caress. I should have told you about Isabel from the beginning, he continued. Should have been honest about my past. But I was scared that if you knew I'd been engaged, that I'd tried to make it work with someone my family approved of, you'd think I wasn't taking what we have seriously. But you were. You are. I am. He pressed his forehead to hers, eyes closed. I'm so serious about you, it scares me. I've never felt this before. Not with Isabel. Not with anyone. Lily let out a low sob, hands rising to hold his wrists. I'm scared too. Scared of getting hurt. Scared of not being enough. You're more than enough. He opened his eyes, looked deep into hers. You're everything I didn't know I was looking for. The rain was falling harder now, soaking them both, but neither moved. They stayed there, trapped in that moment, in that closeness, in that raw and vulnerable truth. Forgive me, she whispered. There's nothing to forgive. He tilted his head, lips brushing hers lightly. Just don't push me away again. Please. I won't. She closed her eyes, feeling his breath mixing with hers. I won't anymore. And then he kissed her. It wasn't like the first kiss, urgent, desperate, full of accumulated tension. This one was different. It was forgiveness. It was a new beginning. It was a promise. The rain fell around them, wetting their hair, running down their faces, but neither cared. They were too busy finding each other again, too busy fixing what had been broken. When they finally separated, both were drenched and smiling. Should we go home? Benjamin asked, running his thumb across her wet cheek. Your place or mine. Doesn't matter as long as it's where you are. Lily laughed, the first genuine laugh in days. Let's go to yours. I need a hot shower and probably a gallon of tea. I can arrange that. He laced his fingers through hers. They began walking through the soaked park. And then we can talk, he said. Really talk. No secrets. No omissions. No lies, she agreed. No lies. They walked hand in hand, the rain still falling, wet leaves under their feet creating a soft sound. And for the first time in days, both felt they could breathe again. Because sometimes breaking is necessary to rebuild something stronger. And they were ready to rebuild together. That night, in Benjamin's penthouse, wrapped in blankets after hot showers and steaming cups of tea, Lily finally asked the question that haunted her. Why did Isabel do it? Benjamin sighed, pulled her closer. Because she never accepted the breakup. For her, our relationship was a transaction, right families, right connections, right image. When I ended it, she lost not just a fiancé, but status. And Isabel doesn't handle loss well. Will she still try something? Maybe. But it doesn't matter. He kissed the top of her head. Because now you know the truth. And I'm going to spend whatever time you give me proving that you made the right choice in giving me a second chance. Lily snuggled against him, listening to the steady beating of his heart. It wasn't a second chance, Benjamin. It was the first real chance. What we had before was beautiful but fragile. Now we have a foundation. Foundation, he repeated. liking the word. I like that. And there, in the safety of each other's arms, with the city glittering through the huge windows, they finally let the past go and began building something that would be worth every tear, every doubt, every moment of pain. Something real. Something lasting. Something theirs. 3 months had passed since the reunion in the park. 3 months of rebuilding, of transparency, of growth. Benjamin and Lily still kept their relationship discreet at work, not out of shame, but out of mutual respect and professionalism. But everyone knew. People always know when two hearts are connected. Glances lingered a second longer. Smiles were softer. The energy between them was undeniable. And then, on a cold Tuesday in January, everything collapsed. Lily was in the conference room reviewing last quarter's numbers when Marcus, Benjamin's partner, rushed in. His face was pale, eyes wide with something between shock and panic. "Lily, I need you now. It's about Benjamin." Her stomach turned. "What happened?" "The SEC is investigating the company. Allegations of insider trading, and Benjamin's name is at the center of it all." The world stopped. The Securities and Exchange Commission. Insider trading. This wasn't just a corporate scandal. It was a federal crime. "That's impossible," Lily said, already standing. "Benjamin would never do that. He's meticulous about compliance." "I know. But someone leaked documents, emails, transactions. Everything points to him." Marcus ran a hand through his hair. "The press is going to explode with this in less than an hour. We need damage control, and we need to figure out who's behind this." Lily was already moving, her brain switching to strategic mode. Years of operations, coordination had trained her to think under pressure. "Where's Benjamin?" "In his office with the lawyers." She practically ran down the hallway. People stopped to stare. The buzz had already started. Whispers, pitying looks, some with malicious satisfaction. Lily ignored them all. She entered Benjamin's office without knocking. He was standing by the window, hands in his pockets, shoulders tense. 3 lawyers were seated at the table, papers scattered, laptops open, faces grave. "Benjamin." Her voice made him turn. When his eyes met hers, Lily saw something she'd never seen before. Fear. Not the superficial fear of losing money or reputation. It was deeper, the fear of losing everything that mattered. "Lily, you shouldn't be here. This could affect your career." "I don't care about my career." She approached, ignoring the lawyers. "I care about you. And I know you didn't do this. The evidence says otherwise." One of the lawyers interrupted. "Mr. Carter, we need to prepare for the worst-case scenario." "What's the worst-case scenario?" Lily asked, turning to him. "Criminal charges. Prison. Millions in fines. The complete destruction of Carter and Co." The floor seemed to shake, but Lily maintained her composure. "Show me the evidence." For the next 3 hours, Lily dove into the documents, emails supposedly sent by Benjamin, stock transactions made days before public announcements, conversations with executives from other companies containing confidential information. But something was wrong. Lily knew Benjamin's writing style, knew how he structured emails, how he signed off, how he spoke, and these emails were similar but not identical. "These commas," she murmured, pointing at the screen. "Benjamin never uses a comma before, that in restrictive clauses. It's one of his quirks. But these emails have them." One of the lawyers frowned. "That's a very small detail." "Small details matter." Lily kept scrolling. "And look at the transactions. They were all made from a different IP than Benjamin uses, and at times he was in meetings. I have the records." She pulled out her own laptop, began cross-referencing data calendars, building entry logs, security footage. Benjamin was physically in other places when the supposed transactions were made. Someone's using his identity, she concluded. Someone with inside access. Someone who knows the company's systems. Benjamin approached, looked at the screen over her shoulder. How do we find out who? Lily thought. Who would have motivation? Who would have access? Who would gain from Benjamin's downfall? And then it clicked. Isabel. Benjamin froze. What? Think about it. She had access to your systems when you were still together. You probably gave her passwords, shared information. She knows your writing style. And after I investigated those manipulated photos, she knew you'd eventually figure out she was behind it. This is revenge. But how would she have access now? Lily was already typing, diving into the system logs. She doesn't need it. She planted this months ago, probably using a backdoor access, waiting for the right moment to detonate it. Her fingers flew across the keyboard. Years of working with complex operating systems finally paying off. She tracked unauthorized access, found patterns, followed digital trails, and there it was, an IP registered to a familiar address, the office of Isabel's consulting firm. Found it, Lily said, turning the screen. All the fake emails were sent from this IP, and the transactions traced to an offshore account that has Isabel as a hidden beneficiary. The lawyers leaned in, examining. One of them whistled low. This is solid. We can use this. Not just use it, Benjamin said, his voice low but firm. There was something different in his eyes now, no longer fear, but determination. We're going to destroy her credibility. And we're going to sue for defamation, fraud, attempted destruction of corporate reputation. We need to notify the SEC immediately, another lawyer added. With this evidence, they'll redirect the investigation. The next 48 hours were a blur: meetings with lawyers, conferences with the SEC, press interviews to control the narrative. Lily worked tirelessly alongside Benjamin, building the case, proving his innocence, exposing Isabel, and when the truth finally came out, when the SEC issued a statement clearing Benjamin's name and opening an investigation into Isabel Lauron, the feeling was one of exhausted victory. Benjamin was at the penthouse, looking out at the city through the huge window, when Lily entered. She carried 2 glasses of whiskey. He needed one. She definitely needed one. It's over, she said, handing him the glass. He took it but didn't drink immediately. Just looked at her. You saved me. We saved each other, she corrected. No. He shook his head, set the glass aside, held her hands. You. When everyone thought I was guilty, you believed. When everyone advised me to accept a deal, you fought. You didn't just save my company, Lily. You saved my life. Tears burned in her eyes, tears of exhaustion, of relief, of pure emotion. I couldn't do anything else. You would do the same for me. I would. I will always. He pulled her close, wrapped her in a tight embrace. You're the most loyal, most intelligent, most incredible person I've ever known. Lily nestled against him, finally feeling the tension leave her body. We're a good team. The best. They stayed like that for a long time, just holding each other, the weight of the last few days finally lifting. The city glittered outside Manhattan in all its nighttime glory, indifferent to human dramas but a silent witness to them all. Isabel will pay for this, right? Lily asked softly. She will. The lawyer said she faces years in prison. Federal fraud is no joke. Benjamin kissed the top of her head. But honestly, I don't care about her. I only care that it's over, that we can move forward. Move forward, Lily repeated, liking the sound of it. Benjamin pulled back slightly, held her face, forced her to look into his eyes. Lily Morgan, you just proved you're the most important person in my life, not just as a romantic partner, but as a partner in everything. And I don't want another day without you by my side. Her heart raced. There was something different in his tone, something definitive. Benjamin, it's not a proposal. Not yet. He smiled, that genuine smile she loved. But it's a promise that it will happen soon. Lily smiled through her tears. I'm waiting. You won't wait long. And they sealed the promise with a kiss, soft, deep, full of everything they'd been through and everything still to come. Because they had survived the storm and were stronger because of it. 6 months later, June arrived with that humid heat characteristic of New York, the kind that made the air shimmer over the asphalt and transformed the city into a bubbling cauldron of life. But in Benjamin's penthouse, 30 floors above the urban chaos, there was a gentle breeze coming through the open balcony doors, carrying the distant scent of the Hudson River mixed with flowers from the hanging gardens he'd had installed. Lily was in the kitchen making breakfast. Well, trying to. Pancakes had never been her strong suit, but Benjamin loved when she tried, especially because they usually ended up laughing at the weird shapes that came out of the pan and ordering delivery. Emma was sitting on the counter, swinging her little legs, drawing in a new notebook Benjamin had given her last week. The girl now spent weekends with them regularly. Sarah had fully recovered from the accident and was happy to see her sister so radiant. Aunt Lily, does this look like a dinosaur or a dog? Emma asked, turning the notebook around. Lily tilted her head, pretending to analyze seriously. A dinosaur dog? Emma laughed, that crystalline child's laugh. That doesn't exist. It should. It would be cute and fierce at the same time. Benjamin entered the kitchen, still in pajamas, gray sweatpants and a white t-shirt, hair messy from sleep, stubble giving him a more relaxed, more human air. Lily never tired of seeing him like this, stripped of all corporate armor, just being himself. "Good morning, artist," he said, ruffling Emma's hair. "Good morning, love of my life," he added, kissing Lily's cheek. She smiled, feeling that familiar warmth in her chest. "Good morning. Want questionable pancakes, or should we order?" "I want your questionable pancakes always." Emma made a face. "I want cereal." Both laughed. Benjamin grabbed the cereal box and a bowl, while Lily finally managed to flip a pancake without completely disintegrating it. They moved through the kitchen in sync, a domestic dance they'd perfected over the months. He grabbed the plate she needed before she asked. She passed his sugar without him speaking. Small gestures. Intimacy built on daily routines. "Emma, after breakfast we'll go to the park, okay?" Benjamin asked. "I promised I'd take you to see the ducks. And, can I feed them?" "You can, but remember the rule. No throwing bread, only proper duck food." Emma recited seriously. "Exactly." He exchanged a look with Lily, that look of complicity, of shared pride, of we're raising this child together and it's working. Later, after Emma was taken back home by Sarah, after the afternoon turned to evening and the city lit up like a million floating candles, Benjamin and Lily were on the balcony. She wore a light summer dress, pale blue, simple, that danced in the breeze. Her hair fell loose over her shoulders. She held a glass of wine, looking at Manhattan stretching infinitely before them. Benjamin was behind her, arms wrapped around her waist, chin resting on her shoulder. They stayed like that for a long time, just existing in the moment, in the comfortable silence that only comes when two people truly know each other. "Remember the day we met?" Benjamin asked softly. Lily smiled. "I remember. You were intimidating, distant. I thought I'd never be able to work with you. And I thought you were annoyingly competent." He kissed her shoulder. "I couldn't stop thinking about how someone could be so smart and so beautiful at the same time. Liar." But she was smiling. "It's true. And then you showed up in that red dress and I realized I was lost. Completely, hopelessly lost." "The red dress," Lily murmured. Memories flooding in. "Feels like a lifetime ago." It was. We were different people then. Better people now. More real people. Benjamin turned her in his arms, forcing her to look at him. The city lights reflected in his eyes, creating golden constellations in the dark irises. "You made me real, Lily. Before you, I was just function CEO, negotiator, money-making machine. But you showed me I could be more. Could be a man, a partner, family." Lily's heart raced. There was something different in his tone, something definitive, something she'd been waiting for without knowing she was waiting. "Benjamin." He took a step back, and then, under the June sky, with Manhattan glittering around them like a witness, Benjamin Carter knelt down. The world stopped. He took a small velvet box from his pocket, navy blue, the kind that held eternal promises, opened it slowly. Inside, a ring. Simple but stunning, a solitaire diamond in white gold, delicate but strong. "Like her. Lily Morgan," he began, and his voice trembled, not with nervousness, but with pure emotion. "In these past months, you saved my company, saved my reputation. But more important than all that, you saved me. You taught me that vulnerability isn't weakness. That love isn't a transaction. That family isn't just blood, but choice." Tears began streaming down Lily's face. She covered her mouth with her hands, body trembling. "I don't want to live another day without you," Benjamin continued. "Don't want to wake up without you beside me. Don't want to make important decisions without hearing your opinion. Don't want to build a future where you're not at the center of everything. So I'm asking you here, now in front of God and this crazy city we both love, marry me. Be my wife. Be my partner in everything. Forever." Lily couldn't speak. Words were stuck in her throat, choked by emotion. So she just nodded frantically, desperately. "Yes," she finally managed to whisper. "Yes. 1,000 times, yes." Benjamin let out a breath that seemed to have been trapped for months. He took the ring from the box with slightly trembling hands, slid it onto her finger. It fit perfectly, as if it had always been made to be there. He stood up, and before he could say anything, Lily pulled him into a kiss, deep, desperate, full of promises and futures and everything they'd survived together. When they finally separated, both were crying and laughing at the same time. "I love you," she said, hands holding his face. "I love you so much that sometimes I can't breathe right." "Then don't breathe. Let me breathe for both of us." He pressed his forehead to hers. "I love you, Lily, more than I thought it was possible to love anyone." They stayed like that, embraced on the balcony, the city pulsing below them, the future stretching infinite ahead. The wedding was small, intimate, just close family and true friends. Not the extravagance traditional families expected, but something real, something theirs. Lily wore a simple white lace dress. Benjamin cried when he saw her walking down the aisle. Emma was the flower girl, carrying the ring with adorable seriousness. Sarah was the maid of honor, smiling through happy tears. And when they said "I do," when they sealed it with a kiss, when they turned to face the world as husband and wife, both knew they'd found something rare. Not just love, but partnership, loyalty, depth. 1 year later, Lily was on the penthouse balcony, the same balcony where Benjamin had proposed. But now there was a round belly under the loose dress she wore. 6 months pregnant, a girl. They'd already chosen the name, Sophia. Emma visited every weekend, already practicing being the best big sister in the world. Benjamin had become softer, more present. He'd reduced hours at the office, prioritized family over mergers. Lily kept working now as VP of operations, but with flexibility, with balance, with a partner who didn't just support her dreams but celebrated them. Benjamin came out onto the balcony, wrapped around her from behind, hands resting protectively on her belly. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. Lily smiled, covering his hands with hers. "About how it all started with that red dress." "No." He kissed her neck softly. "It started with that look when you walked into my office for the first time and challenged me. That's when I knew." "Knew what?" "That you were going to change my life." Lily turned in his arms, looked up at the eyes she knew so well now. "Changed it for the better. Changed it to absolutely perfect." And as they kissed, with the city glittering around them, with a life growing inside her, with a future built on a solid foundation of trust and love, they both knew a simple truth. Sometimes the right person shows up when you least expect it. Sometimes true love comes disguised as a challenge. And sometimes all you need is the courage to say yes to the dress, to the look, to the love, and to forever. And so, under the lights of Manhattan, Benjamin and Lily proved that true love isn't about perfection. It's about choice. Choosing to trust when doubt whispers. Choosing to stay when the world says to walk away. Choosing to build, rebuild, and never give up. They learned that vulnerability doesn't weaken, it strengthens. That mistakes don't destroy, they teach. And that sometimes the person who changes our life shows up when we least expect it, dressed in red, with a defiant gaze, and a heart ready to truly love. Because in the end, it wasn't the dress that won over the CEO. It was the woman who dared to be herself.